The first presentation at this late hour is Þórdís Elva Þorvaldsdóttir. She is an artist, a writer, a journalist, a public speaker. She has many achievements. The latest one is from this year, where she was awarded Women of the Year 2015 from the Federation of Women's Society. Congratulations on that. And the reason, well, simple, due to the tireless work against gender-based violence and sexual objectification. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. There's so much feminist power in this building right now that if it were to be swallowed by the earth, then global equality would come to a screeching halt, I'm afraid. But, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as the Honorable from Chile so eloquently put it yesterday, we are resting on the shoulders of giants here. The suffrage of the Icelandic women was a hard-earned right that our foremothers fought for. It's only suitable to start by acknowledging their accomplishments. It all started in 844, when Hallveig Fróðadóttir, the foremother of all Icelanders, discovered Iceland, along with her husband Ingólfur Arnarsson. They must have arrived on a good weather day because they decided to settle here and have children, which resulted in the birth of Þorsteinn, who had Þórhildur, who had Þorkell, who had Ketill, who had Haukur, who had Ingveldur, who had Snorri, who had Narfi, who had Snorri, who had Narfi, who had Snorri, who had Ormur, who had Guðmundur, who had Þorbjörg, who had Sælu, who had Kristín, who had Jón, who had Magnús, who had Björn, who had Eggert, who had Guðrún, who had Sigríður, who had Guðmundur, who had Jón, who had Guðrún, who had Jón, who had Guðrún, who had Jón, who had Þorvaldur, who had me. This is no joke, by the way. This is from the official genealogical registry of Iceland, which is a thing. I'm born on the 1st of August, 1980, which is the very same night that Vigdís Finnbogadóttir took office. I am a product of the labor of my Icelandic foremothers, and my life spans the exact existence of the first democratically elected female president. I remember how strange it was to see a man take Vigdís's place in 1996 when I was 16, because being a president was quite obviously a woman's job. And may I add, there's nothing that looks better on women than power. But I'm also a product of privilege. I know my ancestry, which is a privilege that people who are displaced, uprooted by slavery, or forced relocation will never know. Which brings me to the importance of understanding the dynamics of privilege. I, for example, am white, I'm cisgendered, I'm able-bodied, I'm born and raised in a stable, peaceful environment with access to clean water and education. Despite this, I am inherently blind to my privileges because that's how they work. The reasons why privileges are invisible is because they represent all the things that don't happen. I can never know how many times in an average day I get good service because I'm white, while a person of color didn't. I can never know how many of my job opportunities didn't go to someone who's disabled, nor how often I've been favored by the fact that I'm educated and not struggling with my sexual identity. But here's the thing, I don't need to know exactly how my privilege works. I just need to know that it does. And while it does, someone else is losing out. Someone else who's not white, able-bodied, cisgendered, and educated, and because we can't keep track of all the things that don't happen to us, we need to borrow other people's eyes. So I urge all of you to look at your life through the eyes of a woman who is transgendered, belongs to an ethnic minority, is disabled, poor, displaced due to war, or uneducated, and tell me what you see. Then share that message with others so we can collectively find methods to make it right. The reason why I ask you to do this is because we need those same methods to bring down the system of privilege that we commonly call the patriarchy. If we're unhappy about the fact that the course of the world is run overwhelmingly by white, straight, middle-aged men with a capitalist mindset, it's time that we women also face and discuss our privilege amongst ourselves. We can only benefit from that conversation. We also need to enable family equality. 100 years ago, when Icelandic women got the right to vote, my great-grandmother, Þórdís, whose name I bear, lived and worked in Reykjavik as a dressmaker. Actually, the Icelandic word is dressmaster, which I find far cooler, so I'm gonna use that. But her work as dressmaster was to design the very garment that was thought to be suitable for women at the time. She worked from home, not by choice, but because someone had to be there for the children. Now, a century later, thanks to the invaluable importance of kindergartens, Icelandic women work comfortably outside their homes, but far too much work awaits them when they return home at the end of the day. The work associated with running a home and raising children is tipped very unfavorably, where the majority of the work is shouldered by women. As a result, we need to turn the tables, this time fighting to support men to stay at home with the children. Paid parental leave for mothers and fathers alike was a revolutionary step towards gender equality and a better society as a whole, putting parents on equal footing when it comes to the first precious months of a child's life. Iceland was leading the pack on a worldwide scale with our non-transferable parental leave for men and women. Unfortunately, this extremely important equality factor has undergone serious setbacks in the past few years as the parental leave fund has weakened. And who do you think skips the parental leave when it becomes too low to sustain the family? The man or the woman whose chest serves as the single source of nourishment for the child for months on end? It doesn't really take a rocket scientist, does it? And we need to turn this worrying trend around. We need to enable both genders to contribute equally to family life, just as we enable them to contribute equally to the economy. Let's not only safeguard parental leave, but expand it further. And mark my words, society as a whole will benefit greatly with the birth of every child, with every diaper that's changed, with every household chore that's equally divided between men and women. We also need to strive for an equal labor market. Despite sitting on top of the World Economic Forum's equality list, Iceland has a deeply segregated labor market, even more so than our neighboring countries. Every professional midwife in this country is female. Every single school nurse, every single medical secretary, as well as an overwhelming majority of preschool teachers, to name a few professions. And it's no coincidence that these same professions are underpaid, overworked, and undervalued. This year in Iceland, one of the largest women professions, our nurses, who are the pinnacles of our healthcare system, were prevented from going on strike by legislation that was passed specifically to prevent them from doing this and campaigning for higher pay. It was passed a few days before June 19th, which was the very day that we celebrated 100 years of women's suffrage, and cast a shadow on this festive occasion, and serving as a reminder that we need to correct the notion that women's work is worth less than men's. It never was and never will be. Yet, the gender pay gap continues to persist like a prehistoric monster that cannot be killed no matter how many times we attempt to chop its head off. And even here, in the top country for gender equality, we have a 17% pay gap. It's unacceptable, and we need to continue searching for ways to end this injustice, even if it means making everyone's salary public knowledge for as long as it takes. As many phenomenal speakers in today's seminars pointed out, we need to take our sexuality back. We have an awe-inspiring, vibrant feminist grassroots in Iceland whose collective bravery and strength knows no limits. In the past few years, they've been fearlessly reclaiming their sexuality, rejecting all forms of morality policing of women's sexual expression, because our sexuality is, in fact, under attack. We women, as sexual beings, are being redefined every day by an industry that teaches boys and girls that the female body is to be objectified, that it is to be subjected to painful and degrading treatment that has nothing to do with sex, but has everything to do with hateful debasement that's being branded and sold to our youth through porn. Wrongfully labeled as pleasure. It's not, and it never has been. We have every right to be angry at an industry that bases its income on the suffering of our sisters in the sex trade. Having sexual relations with another human being is a privilege. It is not a human right. We have every reason to be deeply disappointed in structures and organizations that support the modern-day slavery that prostitution and pornography entail, even if their name is Amnesty International. In Iceland, women and men have been marching by the thousands in so-called slut walks across the country, protesting slut-shaming, sexual violence, objectification, and victim blaming. They rebelled against revenge porn and bared their breasts online by the thousands. There are few things that the world fears more than women who take control of their sexuality on their terms, who dare say, "That's mine, thank you, and I'm taking it back." If being a slut means claiming our right to make our own choices with our bodies and identities, free from shame, then I'm proclaiming myself a proud slut right now. We need to educate the youth. I'll admit it. After years of being an outspoken feminist, I've encountered enough trolls to limit my faith in trying to convince adult non-believers of the existence of gender inequality and the importance of eradicating it. I'm afraid that ship has sailed. But children possess a limitless capacity for learning and adapting to new ideas. Every child is an ocean of possibilities, a universe of potential. Make them believe in an idea, and they will bring it into fruition. If we make gender studies a part of the curriculum on all levels of our school system, then mark my words, it will not take another 100 years for us to celebrate the next milestone of gender equality. Now, I've gone down this road with our Minister of Education before, Illugi Gunnarsson, who didn't agree with me a few years ago, but I'd like to use the opportunity again to challenge him to ensure that gender studies are made part of the curriculum, and with all of you as my witness, he might just say yes. And And since he's not here, I'm trusting you, Gunnar, to bring that message hot, fresh. Now, we need to ensure the right to life without violence. When I was born in 1980, it wasn't customary to talk about sexual violence. It was still taboo when I experienced such violence in 1996, and when I published a book about gender-based violence in 2009, I could count the women who had publicly broken their silence about having been raped on the fingers of my two hands. Now, only a few years later, thousands of Icelandic women have harnessed the power of social media to tell their stories in wild streams that have flooded over our societies. We heard some of these stories in the installation named Post earlier today. And to borrow Laura Liswood's phrase, it was one of my shower ideas that I'm very glad didn't stay in the shower. And I owe my gratitude to the hundreds of women who participated to make the installation possible. But I would be lying if I said that I wasn't furious that so many women have a story to tell. And according to the largest study done in this field in Iceland, a staggering 42% of Icelandic women are subject to physical or sexual violence at the hands of a close male relative in their lifetime. I'll say this. There's something deeply wrong with the world when not having been raped, abused, or beaten is a privilege. We must set the bar higher than that. This means making the fight against gender-based violence a priority, and that costs money. We need to ensure that the police has resources to properly investigate these cases. We need to ensure that survivors have the resources they need to heal from the trauma they've undergone. It's a disgrace that 50 to 70% of rape cases in Iceland are dismissed before they even go to court. And to the members of parliament in this room today, I'd like to say, to make this real progress in the fight against gender-based violence, we need your political will and we need your financial support. We need you to hear the thousands of women and girls who've spoken up about violence and honor their voices. In the end, your investment will pay off because not fighting gender-based violence comes at a much, much higher cost than doing something about it. Now, we need to ensure inclusion and influence, and I believe that I speak on the behalf of very many when I say that this conference has been so inspiring and thought-provoking, and witnessing giants like Þórdís Finnbogadóttir and Gro Harlem Brundtland share their groundbreaking experiences in yesterday's seminar was nothing short of humbling. They both stressed the invaluable importance of women's inclusion in all political and societal matters, be it climate change, conflict resolution, or the building of better societies. I think it's time for a zero-tolerance policy. Women have been discluded from the table for too long, and the world cannot afford to miss out on their contribution any longer. We need more affirmative action to raise the number of women in places where they are sorely missing. We then need to ensure that these laws are abided by to prevent scandals like the one that shook the Iceland's Supreme Court last month, when an all-male committee decided to hire yet another male justice despite qualified female applicants. And to give you an idea of what that means in reality, here's a picture of our Supreme Court justices. If not even our own courts respect our equality laws and our quota requirements, who will? This needs to change. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, these are just a few of the tasks that lie ahead. Like others have said before me, the biggest threat to gender equality is the notion that it's somehow been achieved already. Yes, we've come a long way, but there are battles yet to be fought and won. And like one of our Icelandic heroes in the fight against hate speech, Hildur Liljendal, said to me yesterday, "We will not win these battles by toning down our approach. We need to stand tall, stride fearlessly towards the full human rights of women, no matter how much we have to misbehave to get there. Because in the end, as our proud foremothers knew, well-behaved women seldom make history." Thank you.